Brilliant. Can I ask you all a massive favour? Would you mind just turning your cameras off? I really want to look at your lovely faces, but just for this part at least. Look all out, Sarah. Look very. Feed into my introduction time now. Stressing me out. Right. Let's get started. Yeah. Excellent. Hello, everyone. Hello. Come on, let's. I know it's a bit spicy today, but a little bit more energy would be appreciated. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
Oh.
Here.
Hi.
From the sky as well. Amazing.
Hello. Hello.
But before we get into it, just a bit of a kind of a serious moment. You may have heard the news about the plane crash in India. Air India plane 171. Just sort of acknowledging anyone online or in the room is distressed in relation to this. Checking in with friends and family. Just our thoughts with you all. And we hope you're all doing okay. I won't do a moment of silence, but just to highlight that. So, hello everyone. Welcome to Beyond Barriers, I should say, and Royal Lecture Inclusion Accessibility Celebration Day event. First thing to say is it is actually Accessibility Day today, and this is something that we're now going to kind of maintain as a regular check-in across the rail sector, see how we're all doing, alongside all of the other great work you're going to hear about today that's been going on since we put together the working group, steering group, and the network. So the agenda for today, a little blurb from me, of course. And we're going to go over to Pfizer, who's going to be having a panel conversation with the chairs and co-chairs of Beyond Barriers. Then we'll have a little comfort break. Then we'll move into the kind of executive conversation, which will be chaired by David, obviously one of the chairs of Beyond Barriers. And then we'll have wrap up. Apexa's going to do some closing comments, ask some feedback from you. And then if we run to time from 4 o'clock onwards, a little bit of networking and then close. So some fire emergency things, safety rules, etc. In case of an emergency, we're also going to be going through to reception. That's where you're going to get access to things like emergency services, or equally as well, the toilets as well, which is just important. If you need to go there. So through reception and then through the exit where you've got the elevators. If it does, you can see there, if it does go off, a voice message will be broadcast via the PA system to tell you what to do. And here we have a map of the assembly route point. I'm not sure you've already all got this in your invite. Hopefully lots of nods. If not, please take a picture now. And we'll move on. So, myself and Apexa, we co-chair Royal Lecture Inclusion. Our substantive roles are industry belonging and wellbeing leads. We work at the FTO, we work at Network Rail, doing lots of EDI industry work. But we were part of the founding members of Royal Lecture Inclusion with a clear purpose of trying to bring the industry together when it comes to all things.
Well, no, they will not understand about the headline because it's performance.
Well, this will be able to hear me online, if that's the question. All right, fine. Thank you. Where was I? Yeah, so we were part of the founding members of Royal Lecture Inclusion, and a clear purpose of bringing the industry together when it comes to EDI, well-being, and not just operators, but infrastructure, supply chain. Anyone and everyone was invited to be part of our community. And then if you go back to September of 2023, Apexa and I put together a small panel to talk about social mobility and social value with colleagues from across the industry, so from RDG, Network Rail, from operators and from the DFT to understand their lived experience and challenges and see what we could do to address some of those. Off the back of that, we formed the working group. where you had experts from a range of different backgrounds. So again, supply chain, operators, network, rail, those who work in skill development, those who work in attraction, those who work at early engagement with young people, all coming together to try and understand how can we address these challenges for those that come from, what we'll call for the time being, from a low social background. So what does that actually mean? So social mobility and social value. Language, I think we're kind of not really there yet. You'll probably hear from some of the speakers later that this is one of the question marks around how do we connect with all of our colleagues in a meaningful fashion so they understand what we mean when we say social mobility and we say social value. And equally, that's a part of how we attract as well. Our future colleagues, our future talent from certain communities. But what we can say with certainty, outside of the language we're using, is that as we move forward into GBR, 100,000 colleagues across the country, we will become one of the biggest employers in the public sector space. And when it comes to those from marginalised communities, we have a massive responsibility and opportunity there to give them a career path, a meaningful one, and equally by that relationship, improve their socio-economic experiences and those of their communities. If we talk about connecting people to places, and a lot of our narratives around the railway sector, but actually this is an opportunity to connect people with meaningful careers. And then they will provide that service to the communities that they're part of. So, having said all of that, my time is up. I'm going to hand over to Pfizer. Just remember that what you're going to hear today, when me and Apeksha set up that conversation with six people on a Teams call, that brought us to here today. Now you're all in the room, you're going to hear from some inspirational people on both panels. Just take their insight away and ask yourself, what will you do? So that when we come back a year from now, the conversation will be bigger and the people in the room there'll be more of you. So, Pfizer, over to you.
Thank you. So, hi everyone. My name's Pfizer. I'm an equity, diversity and inclusion specialist at Network Rail, and I'm one of the leads of the industry-wide program of work that we're doing to hopefully improve social mobility across the rail industry. And I'm here today with the new chairs of our new employee network, Beyond Barriers. And I'm going to be talking to them a bit about what their aspirations are for the employee network group and what they'd like to do to help support those goals and ambitions that we have to improve social mobility. We've all had different experiences and opportunities in life. Some of us might have had a private education, while some of us may have not had the same educational opportunities. Some of us may have had parents with successful careers who were able to guide us, who were able to connect us with the right people, who were able to teach us the right ways to speak. And others of us may have had to figure a lot of that out for ourselves and may even have had to support some of our parents financially as well. So with that, we've all brought those challenges into work, and it has also created barriers for us in progressing our careers as well, because our situations and circumstances and background affects the things that we can bring into the workplace as well. So that's what we're really trying to help support with the work that we're doing on social mobility. So we're looking at where are we recruiting people from? So are we reaching people who may not be aware of the rail industry and the work and opportunities available? How are we recruiting them? So are we asking them to meet irrelevant criteria, and where they don't meet the criteria, how are we supporting them to achieve the qualifications that they need? And also, how are we supporting them to progress in their careers? So that might be from helping them to attain qualifications, or it might be to help them to build the networks that they need to help them progress. And that was part of our motivations behind setting up Beyond Barriers. And employee network groups are a really valuable tool and resource that people can go to have a safe space where they can meet people who might have had similar experiences in them, similar upbringings in them and backgrounds, and form those connections and build those networks for themselves. And also for us, in the work that we're doing, it's a really valuable community for us to tap into to understand the challenges that people are facing, so that we can make sure that the work that we are doing is actually addressing the problems that we know exist. So we went through a really rigorous interview process to try to find the best chairs that we could find for this new employee network group, and I'm really pleased to say that I think we found them. And the great work that they've done so far to get to this point, I'm really proud of the chairs that we've got here today, and the work that I know that they're going to continue to do. So I'll stop talking now and I'll ask them to each introduce themselves and why they wanted to be part of the new network group. So I'll go in order. So Jesse.
Thanks. I'm Josie Jesse. I'm a business manager at Network Rail, and I'm one of the co-chairs of Beyond Barriers. This was something that I was, really passionate about, really wanted to do. So for myself, I'm South Indian. I'm South Asian, sorry. So I'm Indian. I've got Indian parents, and the culture of being Indian means that they have very high expectations of what you should achieve in your education and your career. So me and my siblings and my cousins, we were the first generation in our family to go to university, and then I became the first university dropout of the family, which didn't go down very well. There's that kind of stereotypical, we want you to be a lawyer, doctor, pharmacist kind of notion in my family. So my parents and obviously myself were really disappointed when I ended up failing my chemistry degree and dropping out of university. So I was kind of looking for work. I was unemployed, and I ended up finding a work experience through the job centre that was at a train operating company. I did an 8-week placement work experience that then led to an apprenticeship, and then started my career in the rail industry. So that was 10 years ago now. So I know that if it wasn't for that pre-employment program and that work experience opportunity, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today and have had the career that I had today. So I'm kind of like a real life example of how those types of initiatives do work. And so I want to be able to do that for other people and be able to kind of tear down those barriers so that other people who might be in a similar position to me, or worse, like I had a lot of privilege, with the support that I had from my family, but other people don't necessarily have all of that. So I really want to be part of helping them achieve things as well.
Thanks so much, Jossie. That's amazing.
Thank you. So I'm Elena Gonzalez, Social Value Manager at Network Rail. And for me, it's a bit of a motivation from both a professional and personal point of view. From a sort of professional, I look after social sustainability, and it's been part of my career for the most part. And that's all about connecting with communities and ensuring that, we are reaching out the right people locally and making that impact. And I've seen how much, positive stuff organizations can make on the ground. So working with local authorities, charities, colleges, schools, and so on. So that's one side of things. And then from a personal perspective, I come from a small mining community in northwest Spain, if you haven't spotted the accent already. And my dad was a coal miner. And I'm really, really proud to come from a working class background. But I've also seen the struggles that my parents face. And some of it was the lack of access to education for them. And it was also the health inequalities that they experienced throughout their lives. And they made it their mission for me and my siblings to make sure that we had education as a way out to break the cycle. And they've channeled all their efforts and energy and limited resources to make sure that we had a shot at it. And with it, we were also as well the first generation to sort of access higher education, which was brilliant. I was lucky enough to get a scholarship from the European Union at the time for low-income families. At the time, the mines were closing and so on. And I ended up in Wolverhampton as well. So that's probably the hybrid accent with the Spanglish and the West Midlands, which I'm really proud of. I still live in the West Midlands. But, I think when Beyond Barriers came along, I just couldn't wait to jump at the chance to have a go at it, because it's for many reasons. But obviously, my parents are no longer around, and for me, it's also doing it for them. So, yeah, really exciting times.
Thank you so much, Elena. And Tom?
Awesome, thank you very much. So I'm Tom Hall, Social Sustainability Principal at RSSB, and I've got a sort of similar driver as well, so both a personal and a sort of professional reason to be involved in Beyond Barriers. From a personal perspective, parents were born, one up in the northwest, one up in the northeast, after sort of post-war sort of setting and so on. Had to move south for employment, jobs, etc., but worked really hard. I think my dad put himself through the Open University as he was working and so on, but worked really hard after that to obviously give their children, me and my sisters, the sort of opportunities that they obviously didn't have and so on. But from a professional perspective, before joining RSSB, I worked in the third sector for 10 years. It was one of the things actually that drew me to this role, that sort of potential that the railways have for achieving social mobility, for sort of reaching out into communities. You know, the stations, the rail infrastructure and so on reaches out into so many cities, towns, areas of deprivation. And if we can achieve what we want to achieve through obviously the Beyond Barriers network and social mobility work streams and so on, then obviously we start to tackle some of those long-standing social issues, but at the same time start to solve some of those railway issues around talent pipelines, future workers and so on. So for me, this is a good mix of sort of personal and professional interest.
My name is Ray Fullard. I'm the D&I manager at RDG. Similar to I think most of you guys, I come from a working class background. I'm originally from Preston in Lancashire, and also I was one of the first to go to university. I wanted to be the next Louis Theroux. I wanted to make documentaries, so I did a degree in TV production. And then when I graduated, realised I didn't have rich parents or parents with connections in the industry. So I temped for a long time and then ended up in the railway. I started in a maintenance depot, moved to a office job at Network Rail, and then moved to RDG about 5.5 years ago. So part of why I wanted to get involved with Beyond Barriers is, as a D&I manager, obviously I have a broadish remit on the main protected characteristics, but social mobility is one that is often like forgotten about or not even mentioned. So I wanted to help bring that more into the conversation, put it on the agenda at more meetings, and you know, create a better opportunities for people like that I wish I'd had at my younger age.
Thanks.
Hi everybody, my name's Debbie Boot. I'm head of public affairs at LNER. That's my day job, and I'm also now chair of one of the co-chairs of Beyond Barriers. So my background is I'm from Nottingham originally. My parents both left school at 16. My dad was a postman for 30 years. I say that actually he had two jobs for much of that time. So he also worked in a lace factory as well. So for a lot of those years, he was doing two jobs. Anyone who meets their postman or postwoman on their doorstep, they quite often have another job as well because the pay is so low. And my mum worked in various supermarkets.
So that will, not cause the page to change dramatically.
Stories.
And guess what? They're all on the
Sorry, everybody, and sorry, David, twice.
Does that work now?
The tech support.
It looks like it's unmuted now. Okay. Can everybody hear us now?
For those online, you didn't miss much. And I will wrap up now. So I was very very passionate about social mobility. Really wanted to become part of the network. I've been mentoring for the last few years. So for anyone who knows anything about public affairs, communications, it's quite a hard sector to get into. And what I've realised is there is a real importance around sharing stories and making sure that people know that the sector is for them, that actually there are people from a similar background. So I think for all of us, we find it quite hard to talk about our backgrounds, not because we're embarrassed, but just because it means talking about yourself, which is never an easy thing to do. But actually, visibility is so important. And I know we'll touch on it later, but sharing those stories is really helpful for those in the industry, whether new to the industry or been in the industry for a while. So that's why I was keen to join the network, share my story, and hopefully be part of something big in the future with Beyond Barriers.
Thank you so much, David. And thanks everyone for sharing your stories. I think it's really valuable as well for people to hear, so that when they are thinking about whether or not the network is for them and whether to join it, they know that the people behind it are people who are like really have that lived experience and really care and understand the challenges themselves. So what can you tell us about what some of your aims are, what you want to do with the network, and where do you want it to go?
So I'll take this one. So we've got three main key pillars of our vision. Those are raise awareness, advocate for change, and safe spaces and support. And safe spaces and support might sound like a bit of a different one, but like David's just said, we wanted to create somewhere where people could share their stories and, realise there are people with similar backgrounds to them, learn from them on how they've progressed their careers. And we can support them to get to where they want to get to progress. If they want to, they might not. They might be happy where they are. Want to reach out to people who work on the front line to get their voice in as part of the conversation, because a lot of times staff networks can be sort of limited to more office-based staff, and we really think that involving the front line just strengthens the conversation, strengthens all of our voices. We want to be guided by our members. We don't want to just say you're going to learn about this week and this next week. We want to hear what they would find useful, whether that's confidence building, to be able to feel able to apply for that promotion or a new role. And we want to work closely with other organisations, like we're collaborating with Rail Unites for Inclusion today, just to make sure we do get social mobility on the agenda, more talked about, because from an intersectional point of view, we're all not one thing. I'm from a less advantaged background, I'm neurodivergent, I'm non-binary, different things affect different people, but there is this one common social mobility thing that kind of links us all together.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Ray. Thank you. That's really, really great to hear. And what can you tell us about those three areas as well a bit more? So you said raising awareness, creating safe spaces, and what was the last one that you said? Advocate for change. What can you tell us more about some of those things?
If I pick up on the last one, so advocating for change. So as a network, we won't have the levers to change everything in our industry. But what we can hopefully do is challenge our leaders across rail, make sure that the views of those from lower socioeconomic backgrounds is heard, and push for the change that we need. So when we talk about advocacy, it's very much using the power of an employee network. The number of people hopefully within the network will continue to increase, and we're able to use that collective voice to challenge our leaders and to make sure that we're doing more and more in the social mobility space.
The employees, obviously, massive area for us to explore. A bit of an outreach program that we're looking into is about how do we talk to people on the ground, and we've mentioned frontline. And now that we're expanding our leadership team, we've got a really great opportunity to be on site, present across the UK, having those conversations, whether it's a toolbox talk or a lunch and learn. And you know, there might be some tough conversations, but if we're going to be advocates, we need to hear that voice. We need to understand why people are not reporting the data. We need to understand why there are taboos about, you know, socioeconomic backgrounds. I think there is a piece of raising awareness as well to our leadership, which I think it needs to the advocacy piece. And if you're saying, okay, everyone in this room and online will know that this is the right moral case, but actually there is a massive business case for this as well. This makes business sense from a perspective of the skill shortage in the rail industry, tapping into wider talent pools. It makes sense from economic growth, community engagement, which we are talking a lot about, you know, we're hearing a lot as part of rail reform. Let's make it happen. You know, there's just, it's really great ambition, but this is the reality of tangibles you can deliver. And I think the last one I would say is the theme for today is shifting mindsets. And I think it's a really powerful reminder to say sometimes we don't need like a big fancy, you know, program. All it takes for someone's life to change is another person to think differently. So it's how do you go about challenge that prejudice that still exists when you know, interviewing a person and you're hearing an accent, you know, you don't know what that person is going through. You don't know what access they had to education or many other things, how many resources. So it's, you know, we all have a collective. Everyone in this room can take one action today to mentor someone, volunteer somewhere, or give someone a job based on grit and, you know, talents, as opposed to what they hear or what they wear, you know, for example.
Yeah, that's really great. So it's trying to change that culture of how do we think differently about who's got talent and who doesn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you still see job adverts that say the cultural fit. Well, what's that mean? I want, you know, or been quite polished candidate, for example.
Yeah. Thank you.
And then if I touch on safe spaces, so really the whole purpose of Beyond Barriers as an employee network is to be the voice of the people. So we are here to project and amplify those voices. So we want to create a community, a trusted community where people feel safe to share their own lived experiences, because you know, I think social mobility is different to every other protected characteristics that you usually have staff networks for, because it's so individual. There's so many different examples, and intersectionality plays a big part in social mobility too. There's not going to be any one size fits all approach to social mobility. There'll be thousands of different scenarios and experiences that people have, and therefore the needs that they'll have to progress or feel comfortable in their career and in the industry will be different. So we really are here to create that sense of community and have those open and honest and transparent conversations with our members to understand what is their lived experience, what barriers have they faced, and how can we like take on that and feed it into the industry-wide working group and the steering group to make sure that we are addressing some of those barriers and doing things for them that can help them. We don't want to assume what they are. I mean, we all have lived experience, but even just between us, our experiences are so different. So it's understanding, you know, what exactly are people going through, but then also promoting all the people that have had a lived experience of social mobility and have had successful careers in the rail industry, because you know everybody's mentioned it's a taboo subject and not many people talk about it. You don't often hear people talk about where they started and where they came from and what their background was unless they're specifically asked. So we, you know, we're really keen to do case studies of people throughout the industry who are either on a journey or have had a successful career in the industry, so that they can be role models, and that people that might be at the beginning of that journey can see it is possible, and there is people like me out there who have had successful careers in the industry.
Yeah, I think that's really nice, because what you said about the value of safe spaces is like there's a macro element to it, which is that you can then amplify those voices and take those on and kind of be the voice of those people that are part of the group, but then also like the individual level and the impact that it will have for them to join the network and the relationships that they will build themselves as well.
And also from a health and well-being perspective, because if you feel like you don't have an avenue to talk about your experiences and have people that understand what you've gone through, and you're not don't have that community and that space and you just keep it inside, there's that whole bit of psychological safety and not
Yeah.
bringing your best self to work. So I think addressing that as well is really important.
Yeah, thanks, Jotty. So what would you say to people in the room today if they were thinking, okay, well, why should I join Beyond Barriers? What's in it for me?
I'll say that one. I think it's in some ways, we've just answered that question with the sort of in-depth sort of discussion from the co-chairs. But for me, it's that opportunity to have a voice, to share experiences, and then from a sort of network perspective, obviously we've got a great platform then to feed that out into the industry. The working group is a great platform in terms of subject matter experts, professionals from across the industry looking at early careers, outreach, professional development, etc., etc. And if we can feed the voice of social mobility into those sorts of areas, and the industry becomes much more receptive, much more open, and much more sort of transition in terms of development and so on. The session you'll hear after the break will bring senior leaders into the conversation as well. And again, that sort of aspect for us to be able to take the voices we hear from this room, from online, the webinar we did back in March, you had 110, 120 different people already sharing experiences in the chat and during the session about all the topics we've just touched on there. It's coming. And actually, if we can take those messages, feed it into that sort of senior leadership aspect and drive that process from the top as well, then we'll start to achieve the things we want to achieve as Beyond Barriers.
Thanks, Tom. And I guess Lena kind of touched on it earlier as well, which is that people in this room probably came today because they care about the subject and they're really passionate too. And along that theme of shifting mindsets as well, what is it that people can take away from this conversation as something that they then after today can go away and do and apply to their day-to-day jobs or whatever they do after today that they can take away with them? I've stumped you. Sorry.
Yes.
I think for those that are in like senior leadership positions or are a line manager, like talk to your teams about social mobility. Just get the conversation going because, finding out a little bit more about the people you work with, it just helps like team cohesion. You be more productive. I think if you feel happy to share one of your lived experience, if you're joining up as a member, like get in contact with any of us on the leadership team. I think just if you add your voice to the conversation, like our voice will be louder the more of us there are. So that's what I would say.
Because I think this is for members. So what we need is feedback. But we need to just challenge us to say this is not working for me, this is not relevant, this is not resonating. We don't understand this language because sometimes we talk about socioeconomic, social value. They are really grand, but actually what does it mean in practice? So if we are going to serve our members, you need to tell us as well, this is what would be an expectation from us. This is what I would find helpful for me to progress, perhaps in the rail industry or whatever it might be. So I think it's a two-way. We can create a bit of this is what we think it's going to look like and it's going to really work with people, but please tell us if it doesn't, or tell us, I've seen some really best practice, perhaps outside well, and we just adopt it here. And it would be more effective if it's two-way, really.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. A lot of what we're doing now is we're just starting and we're all learning. So we want to get messages back so that we know that we're doing the right things that people want as well. David?
I was just going to touch on something that senior leaders can do, but also members of our network when they talk to people in their organisation. I think social mobility is a growing issue in all of our organisations, and I think we need senior buy-in into the topic. We need advocates in the organisation, but also a champion within each organisation that is going to take it seriously and make sure it's not just a hidden agenda item on meeting discussions, but is actually fundamental to how we run these organisations into the future.
I think one of the challenges of it being an industry network, this is like a new way of working for us, is trying to work across some of those dare say barriers across the different organisations and breaking some of those down to try to reach more people than what we've ever managed to reach before as well.
Yeah, Oh, God. I was just going to say that's one thing that I would add is that everybody in the room today and in the virtual room is to spread the word and spread awareness. You know, we've been we launched in March. We did a bit of a soft launch in March. We've got over 200 members now, but there's thousands of people across the industry, and there'll be thousands of people that this affects, whether it's somebody that they know or affects them personally. And I think, you know, at the moment, I would say the demographic of our members are people who are already knowledgeable, already interested in the topic, already doing work in this space. And it would be great if we could get to the people who don't know that we exist or don't know that there's all this work going on, so that we can tell them about it and we can say, you know, come and have your voice heard and join kind of some of the initiatives that we're rolling out or supporting the working group with rolling out.
Yeah, I was going to say something very similar. It's almost that, for me, it's that sort of practical aspect. You know, we've had online discussions, we've got a discussion today in a nice meeting space and so on, but actually we need to push this out further, that sort of practical aspect, as Elena mentioned, toolbox talks, crew rooms, etc., etc. How do we get the voice of the frontline staff and so on into this conversation?
And what about allies? What would you say that you would want from people who may not have the lived experience of being from a less advantaged background, but want to help?
Absolutely. This movement is not going to be exclusive in any way. And like all of the networks, we need allies, because that shift in mindsets is actually for people that might not have the lived experience. But like all of us, we might have some prejudice, and they, you know, they're as important as anyone else, really. Yes, of course, create safe spaces is probably more specific for people with that lived experience. But I would definitely say this is for everyone. If we want to understand from them what's prejudice about it, can we have that difficult conversation? Is, you know,
Yeah,
we might end along for that.
yeah, definitely.
And also, just to add to that, it's like taking the time to understand what people who have lived experience, what their experiences might have been, you know, so they can advocate for them and understand if they're in a situation where maybe without this community, they might not have understood that they were inadvertently discriminating or causing a barrier for someone. You know, we hear loads when we do any of these talks, the topic of banter is always brought up, and you think of just examples of people like making fun of where someone's from or making fun of an accent or something. You know, it might just help them be more mindful about those things, because you might be making a joke, but that'll probably stick with that person, and it will probably make them, you know, less confident to speak out in meetings and things like that. So everything that you say does have an effect, and you might not realize it if you're not somebody who's lived that experience. You might not realize that yourself. So to even just have that awareness and understanding can make you more mindful when you're in groups of diverse people.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. That was a really, really great conversation, and I think a really great introduction to who Beyond Barriers are and what you're all about and what your ambitions are. And I'm really excited and keen to see where the network goes and how we can help advance it and grow it even more. So with that, I'll introduce us to a bit of a break. And what time are we coming back from the break? 2:50, so 10 minutes. If you want to grab a comfort break, a cup of teas and coffees or water at the back, and the toilets are out the glass doors by the lifts. So thank you, everybody. I'm back in the room in 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jaya coming. I'm Jaya. Mm-hmm. Jaya.
Yeah, we're good now. It's fine. It's just
There is that. Shall we swap the chair out? So I'll start again. I'm still David Boots. So this panel is an opportunity for our senior leaders across rail to talk about social mobility and for us to hear their own stories, their own reflections on the state of the rail industry when it comes to tackling this important issue. So to my left, I have Mick Cash, former General Secretary, literally. Mick Cash, former General Secretary of the RMT. We have Linda Wayne, Engineering Director at LNER. We have Claire Gibbs. I had to write your job title down, Claire, so hopefully I get it right. So Director, GBR, Design and Stand-Up at Department for Transport. Is that right? And Sir Andrew Haynes, CEO of Network Rail. So really delighted that we've got such senior leaders with us today. So I will ask a number of questions and then we'll hopefully have a bit of time for audience participation as well. What I want to do is just start with a general question, just to Mick, if I can start with you. If you can just tell us a bit about your own background, how you joined the rail industry, and I guess your reflections of where we are now when it comes to social mobility. Is it a different industry? Is it a better industry than the one you joined?
Can you hear me? I've got to use this thing, have I? I tend to do this when I'm talking. So my background, Christ, I'm one of seven of two Irish immigrants who came to this country in the mid-1950s. Having said that, I was born in a railway cottage in Essex. So I also am an Essex boy, although there are nuances to that. And my mum was raised in a farm in Galway. Still go back there, see my aunts and uncles. And my dad come from Kildare, the Irish traveller. We were raised in our first few years in various locations because my dad worked Hackney, Langdon Hills. In those railway cottages are not there anymore, by the way. In Essex, then Salford. Went travelling for a while, ended up in Hemel Hempstead, a traveller's site there, which is now a ski slope, one of those dry ski slopes. If anyone's ever been to that place in Hemel Hempstead, I can tell you what it was like in the late 60s. And actually, I don't know, it was a bit of a tip, but I got a nail when playing on the tip when I was a child. And I've got a scar because I ran away from my mum underneath my chin because I was knocked down by a cyclist of all things. So, but there you go. Moved back into housing. So we've been living in a house, went to school. All of us went to school, which is quite unusual from someone from a traveller background. And I always wanted to be a TV engineer. So when I left school with 4 CSEs, I have to say, anybody knows what CSEs is, I don't know what the modern equivalent is, but they weren't great. 2 in English, level 2 in English and I think general crafts, which is about how you build cars or something. And maths, I was a 4 and I can't remember what the other one was now. And I went to Welwyn Garden City to learn how to be a TV mechanic, radio TV mechanic, but dropped out for one reason or other. Spent 6 to 8 months building a Marks and Spencer's warehouse as an electrician's mate in Hemel Hempstead, and then ended up being unemployed and got asked to do a job. Because I was unemployed, had to get me dole. It's only 2 times in my life I've been unemployed, by the way. And the second time I had to get me dole, I had to sort of apply for jobs. And I applied for a job on the railway. I thought it was going to be a railway porter. And I ended up being a junior railman at the age of 17. So all this happened before I was 17, by the way, by the time I was 17. And I ended up on the S&T department, which I became to known as the sick and time department, at Watford, and worked my way up through the grades. Left there in 2000 to become the Senior Assistant General Secretary at the RMT and become the General Secretary in 2014 when Bob Crow sadly passed away. And I retired from that in 2021. I can go on more, but I know there's other panelists. And it's just nice to know, by the way, that on this occasion, and I think actually literally on social mobility, Andrew is to my left, I'm pleased to say. So I'll give you a sort of a potted history, but I can go into other things, but just so others can have a chance to speak. Otherwise, I'll hold this mic for the rest of the day.
Right. You pass on. Question to you.
Thank you. Afternoon, everybody. I don't really know what social mobility is. I think it's like a new tag that's come on. I come from a family where it was normal that if you asked for a watch at Christmas, they would buy you a strap one year and the watch the next year. But my dad was always completely encouraging. He always was so encouraging about what did I want to do, what things would keep me going. And so I went to university. My brother and sister didn't, but I went to university. And when I went to apply for a sponsorship and sat in the room, and they said, "Oh, which school did you go to?" And I said, "Whitby Comprehensive." It's fine. That's where I went. And they go, "Oh, not Eton or all these other ones." And I kind of didn't really realise that I was unusual. It's and I think that for me, it's not really been a barrier because I've never really known that it was there to be a barrier. And I think for me, in terms of some of the things that we need to remove the barriers, is for people to recognise that a lot of them are in people's heads. And I think we talk a lot about schools, we talk a lot about talking to the children, we talk a lot about getting them involved. For me, I think that parents are absolutely vital to take you on that journey, because if they are supportive, if they just consider it normal for you to go to university, to do these bits and pieces, then there are no barriers, particularly because you just go on and do it. So yeah, I've been quite lucky, really. I mean, I've come from that area, but I've not really seen the barriers that some have, I think, which is really, really lucky.
I was very, very similar, actually. So I was born and bred in Hull, so not that far from Whitby, actually. And a really kind of similar story from Hull's got had lots of socioeconomic challenges. I guess it still does today. My dad worked for, I was going to say the Lecky board, sorry, it's the electricity board then. And his dad was a trawlerman before him. So like really industrial kind of city. And it was very much the same thing about my parents. It was all about opening up my eyes to opportunity and self-belief, actually. And actually knowing, not that it's like, you've got to get out of Hull, because I absolutely love Hull, absolutely love it. But, the career paths and the opportunities there, my parents were like, we kind of want better, if you like, for you. So it was very much the same as you in terms of really, really supportive advocacy. But I do think sometimes then there's barriers. Like I was saying to someone the other day, and I don't know if it's the right phrase, but I didn't realise I'd been socially mobilised, if that's the right word. Maybe until a couple of years ago, because it was always that thing of that was just my lot through life. And actually it was my parents to begin with. And then when I kind of entered transport, which was 20 years ago, which was with then the Highways Agency, whatever grade you call it, an AO grade, it was actually the people that I worked with that I was so lucky to have that kind of, support and self-belief that you could do it. Because I think the barriers for me were actually in my own head. So it was a lot about the fact that the kind of education that I'd had, my accent, which when I first moved down south was a lot thicker than this. And there was people at times that I talked to that didn't understand what I was saying, weirdly. And that also that bit about when I people sort of say, how did you get into the sort of the railway career? I kind of fell into it because, again, you kind of go, I didn't know what the opportunities were in rail or even in the part of government that's part of that sector. And yeah, and I think what's held me back often is either one, not understanding the opportunity and the potential, but like you say, that belief that I either had to have a certain level of education or had to think in a certain way. And actually, it's about those people that have really supported me through that and challenging me to think a bit differently about it that's been so important for me. And the last thing I would say is I really don't like the phrase lower socioeconomic background. I mean, one, it's a mouthful, but two, I think I don't know what it is. It just puts a label that kind of suggests that like people are massively disadvantaged from the start. And for me, there's a bit like we shouldn't get away from the fact that people need to understand the opportunities that are there. But it's just something about that I think we kind of need to move the conversation on, because I think it puts sometimes an unhelpful label for people. But yeah, so that's a bit of my story, my journey.
Oh,
sorry. Okay.
Probably they think I'm going to say too much. Andrew, teenage parents, so like a race to the bottom. I was telling the guys last week when I came out of hospital, went into a house with no electricity because private rental. We looked up to people in council houses because they had indoor toilets and electricity. My social mobility journey was the complete luck I had in having a fabulous junior school teacher. Took me under her wing. My parents were very supportive, but within the constraints of what they knew. My mother still lives in that same house at electricity. You'd be glad to know, since the late 60s. But they still live there, so it wasn't that they were bad parents. Absolutely not. But they didn't know anything. Of my 13 cousins, one subsequently went to university. But even of my generation, I was the only one to go to university. It just wasn't normalised. But I had this amazing junior school teacher who sort of took me under her wing and made a massive difference to my life. And that's why I'm very passionate about this, because that was just a bit of luck. I didn't choose that teacher. She didn't choose me. My parents didn't choose her. But my opportunities in life have been massively enhanced because of that piece of luck. Yeah, and I've grabbed them and I've worked my butt off. But without that opportunity, it wouldn't have happened. And it's not right that actually we are so dependent on that. And that just because you happen to be born in a certain street or go to a certain school, that the number of opportunities you have is very much constrained. And that was my experience, and that's why I'm very passionate about the subject. The other reason I'm really, really passionate about it is because we do know that there's a significant percentage of the population that regards the EDI agenda as not being about them. And many of those people are working class people. Many of them are white and many of them are men who believe that EDI is about everybody else. It's about women, it's about people of colour. And actually, if we really believe in EDI, we're talking about equity for people who can't reasonably expect equity. And social mobility is as pronounced a characteristic. And if we can engage through talking about, and you're right, the words, social mobility is maybe marginally better than lower socioeconomic background, but it's still a tag. But if we can engage in that conversation and really talk about fairness of opportunity, then the optimist in me believes that we could really drive more to the broader EDI agenda, because we'd harness a lot of people who regard themselves as being victims of it at the moment, and actually they could well be beneficiaries of a real commitment to fairness.
Thank you. I think on that language point, it's certainly something we've started to discuss as a leadership group within Beyond Barriers, and we'll be keen to ask that question of our members about what language resonates, what language should we be using as an organisation. I want to sit with you, Andrew. So I guess thinking more broadly about running an organisation, actually, as a senior leader, what are the benefits of improving social mobility? And what's the benefit to a business or an organisation to have a diverse workforce when it comes to socio-economic background, for want of a better word?
The ultimate benefit of social mobility is you get more people like me. I mean, what could be better? No, but look, you get access to talent that otherwise doesn't have the chance. And running the rail network is a complex job. It's genuinely complex. The the scale of the activity, the complexity of the assets, the external factors. It's not a walk in the park. And to do that well, we should be wanting to tap into the best talent possible. And to say that we're going to exclude that because you have to go into a certain type of school, or because this is only a male task, or but because we don't trust people who don't look like us, it's madness. So it's about accessing that wider pool. But we have to do it right the way through is the point I would make. You have to do it in your, in how you market yourself, how you recruit, but then also how you develop as well. Because actually, I think as an industry, we're not bad from a social mobility point perspective of getting people in, because we've got relatively high number of unskilled jobs. But what's your opportunity beyond that? What extent do you, and not just what's the opportunity, but what's your awareness of the opportunity, and what sense do you get that actually you're working for a manager, a leader, a business that wants to support you on the journey, if that's your journey. I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant now. We talk a lot about higher purpose. A lot of our colleagues don't have a higher purpose in work. Their higher purpose is to feed their families, to have a holiday if they're lucky every now and again, and to think that they can retire, with more than a couple of years life left in them. That's a high enough purpose for some people. So not everybody will want to progress. Not everybody's interested in social mobility. They're actually really comfortable where they are. My parents haven't moved from the house because why would they move? Why would they move from the fact that, my cousin lives next door and they know everybody else in the street? They're interested in social mobility. But the point is, it's choice. And that's what we got to do, is to give people a choice as they continue through.
Thank you. Claire, one for you. What does the industry need to do more of? So thinking particularly of rail, obviously your role at the moment is specifically rail, but feel free to talk more broadly across the sort of DFT landscape. But what do we need to do more of?
So I guess with kind of my hat on as working on GBR is actually, alongside the opportunity, is actually get people excited about working in rail. I think, over the last couple of years, it's been quite difficult times in rail for lots of people. And I think it's about actually how do you build GBR into something that's real opportunity. So at whatever level you enter into that organisation in future, that it's something that, particularly young people say, actually, this is a organisation that I want to work for, and that there's supportive pathways through that. So similarly in the, how do we support people in terms of, expectations about level of education, actually lots of different pathways that I know that all the organisations Rail currently do, including DFT, so more use of apprenticeships, but also just that, in the sense of saying, if you enter at potentially lower skilled roles, what's the opportunity to progress? That actually you want to kind of create kind of lifelong pathways for it into GBR. So for me, it's that grasping that opportunity as we kind of move forward in standing up GBR, to take all the good practice that people do already in their own organisations, really to kind of to make that thing for people to say, actually, I want to work and be part of GBR over the long term. I think is half of that, alongside the opportunity piece.
Thank you. Linda, one for you. So we had a question in when we opened the invite to this event, we asked for suggested questions, and one was around how do we break the perception that senior leadership positions are only for certain people. I know we sort of touched on it very briefly in the first panel session about that idea of cultural fit when you appoint to a post, but how do we challenge the perception that all senior leaders are of a certain type?
I think one of the things that we need to do is what we've started to do now, which is telling our stories, because we're not from a stamp of posh schools and posh universities that Daddy says that this is what we're going to do and we're going to go and lead this company. And I do think that actually the rail industry is pretty good in a lot of ways about allowing that that ability to sort of like move through. So I think telling our stories is a good start, because I think, you know, that will start to break the myth. And I think it is just about talking to our teams and, you know, encouraging about things associated with, as Claire was saying, about pathways to change. Quite often we have people on the front line who, you know, they actually would like to progress. They would like to do something more management or more leadership, and we've got a number who've done it. But it's just making sure that that is obvious, that it can happen. It's straightforward for it to be done, and you know, there is no barrier to whatever of your protected characteristics that effectively is going to stop you moving forward for senior leadership posts. And I think, you know, some of these people who've come through adversity, and, you know, they are pretty damn resilient. You know, they are people who you can trust, and you know that they will deal with it, and they will keep smiling, and they will keep going, because they're just used to it. And I think, you know, sometimes that resilience is a really brilliant trait that we should encourage, because you know, I think Andrew said about this industry isn't that easy. Well, it isn't that easy. When it goes wrong, sometimes it really goes wrong. But, you know, having somebody who is able to sit there to not panic, to deal with these sort of longer term thinking and what have you, that's a lot that these, you know, some of these people can do that we need to encourage. So yeah, I just think tell the stories, sort the pathways, and just keep in touch with your teams.
Thank you, Linda. Mick, I've got a feeling this might be one for you. What role do trade union partners play in improving social mobility in rail?
Oh, how long have you got? First, I'll just give you I can tell you that because one of the things I wrote down when I was here in the first panel about networks and speaking to people and getting support from people of your own background. Trade unions have been doing that in this industry for over 150 years. First trade union was my own in 1871, and before that, the networks that they created. And actually, I felt when I was listening to the colleagues earlier on, and I support what they're doing, I ain't got nothing wrong with doing. I suspect if I was back in 1850s Victorian Railways, they'd be having the same conversations about how you get together. So there are already established mechanisms for actually getting things across, and we're pretty good at doing it. But can I also say that there's a lot of change going on at this moment in time, and I think it's a huge opportunity, and I don't want to miss it. I don't think we should miss it. So I'm pleased Claire's here, because I'm going to say a couple of things that is going to be unpalatable, but it's reality. The first thing I'm going to say, and I disagree with Andrew actually here, is that if I joined the rail in 1978, I was 18 years of age. Two things that happened to me the day I joined. I had to join a pension and I had to join a union. I got auto-enrolled in both, dare I say it, the two best decisions ever made for me. But back in 1978, it was a whole social infrastructure. It was a rail network. The industry reflected the communities that they served, rightly or wrongly, by the way, rightly or wrongly. And if we're going to reunite railways to again in the year 2025, and we've started already with the TOCs coming back in-house. I don't call it nationalisation, by the way, because there's a whole swathes of the rail industry not part of the British Rail, and as you'd know it, then if we're going to reunite it, then we need to make sure we do it in a way that I think ensures that social infrastructure, which is a bit what Andrew said about the fact that some people don't want to move up the ladder, but they do want to feel comfortable in the environment they're in. And I have to say that social infrastructure got completely destroyed in 1993 when we privatised the rail network. So it's not just about giving people confidence and being able to speak out and actually a view, but it's actually a more holistic approach for how the industry nurtures and cares and lets people thrive in it. But from my perspective, if I was applying to, my sense is that if I was to ask to get a job, try and get a job on the railway, particularly Network Rail or the TOCs these days, but Network Rail for me it would be because I always had a technical sense of mine. I wouldn't get in. With one exception, I'd get in if I was in the supply chain, and then, or if I was going to be a cleaner, or even a security guard, who are all outsourced. I'd get in the supply chain, but I'd have to be on a 0 hours contract, because 0 hours contracts and precarious work can be normalised in by the supply chain in our industry. So if we're going to address the touchy-feely things about how we talk and how we deal with stuff, let's also touch some of the structural stuff around how people feel that they're a part of the industry. And I'll tell you one thing you could do straight away. I mean, we talked about, and I think it's a really important, important thing about apprenticeships, giving access to young people. Apprenticeships now are for young people. I think the government have said they're back to young people rather than to everybody. So that's a good point. Work experience is great. My son's had that. He works in the industry. He's the first cash to get a university degree in economics of all things. But yeah, well, there you go. More cash in this world, the better you are, I think. But there's another matter. But you've got a whole world of people, whether they're in supply chain, whether they're cleaners or security guards, whose contracts change depending on which what you are going to be. I'm talking about contracts, their work contracts change because they keep changing suppliers. Well, give them a bit of hope and better belief in the industry. If you're going to do work experience for a young kid at the age of 15 to see whether or not it suits them, why don't you do it for these people as well? So there are a load of things we could be doing. But Claire, your job, I think, is part of mine, is to reunite a railway, but do it in a way that actually gives us all the opportunity, and we don't have to sit in a room like this, and in these days with the stuff and the cameras and whatnot, and talk softly feely things. Let's put things in place that actually mean stuff. So one of the things I sit on this steering group, and I'm pleased to do so, one of the things I'll be looking to do, and I know the guys are doing this, they're looking at, can I say guys? I mean that in a what's the name, gender neutral way, shall I say that in ways? But actually, it's talking about data and all that sort of stuff, about actually measuring what you're trying to do as much as turning around and trying to talk and become talking shops. I don't want this to be another EDI or EDEI, whichever one you want to call it, initiative. I want it to be something that's valuable and actually delivers results, because I don't get involved in talking shops anymore. I'm retired now, so I don't have to do it. I would also say, by the way, the industry, back in my day, I was reading a set of minutes of a discussion with ministers back in the early 1900s, 1911 time, where the ministers were talking to trade unions about what they're going to do about social stuff. They've been doing that for donkey's years. The industry is not industry leaders are trade unions as much as they are the employers. We're all in together. Sorry, did I cover everything you wanted to cover?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So we'll go to questions in a moment. So if you're online, feel free to post in the chat, and we'll take questions in the old-fashioned way in the room. But before that, just give you a bit of thinking time. So what does good look like in 3 or 5 years' time? So I'll open this out to the whole panel. Who wants to take that easy question first? So what does good look like 3-5 years down the line?
Thank you. So for me, what does good look like? Actually, for me, it's about people in the railway. So obviously there's lots of outcomes for the railway in terms of customer and the passenger feels that the railway is where it needs to be and it's providing the right services. But actually, for me, huge measure of success, and it probably links to Mick's point, is actually that, the people that are working for GBR feel engaged, feel part of an industry that they want to stay in, and there isn't that stigma of kind of barriers in terms of not wanting to progress or feeling that they can't, and that's the opportunities. But I recognise the biggest challenge is how do you measure that in a way that isn't for want of a better word, just some numbers on a paper and a bar chart that people are looking at and saying that's all very interesting. So I think there is also a part of this that goes, how will we know that we get there? And part of that success, again, is being really clear that we can have some things that we kind of look at and say, well, actually, we've been on a journey. We've got there within the 3 to 5 years, but it's as much to me about actually how people feel. What's their perception in terms of, are they enjoying working for GBR? Because if we've done that, I think we've cracked half of it in terms of kind of opportunity and fulfilling careers for everybody that wants it in GBR. Actually, whether it's social mobility angle or any other EDI angle in terms of working for GBR.
3 quickies. First of all, a growing system, because actually for a system that isn't more attractive, then frankly we're going to be a cash constrained system, and that's not going to be better jobs for people, generally speaking. Secondly, I'd like us to be seen doing something with 16-year-olds. I think from the fact that the vast majority of apprenticeships these days start at 18 actually is quite a big barrier if you happen to have not done particularly well at school, or if you're a late learner. And so many of the senior colleagues I've worked with in my life probably wouldn't have been able to get into the system with 18 being the minimum age. And then the third one is being able to talk to anybody in the railway business about what their pathway to growth is, so that we've got clear pathways. And not everybody will want them, and not everybody will have the capability, and not everybody will have the attitude either. But actually, that we are clear pathways for people, and then we can nurture people along that as appropriately. I think all 3 of those are things which are eminently doable, but you have to start with the first. We need to have a product that people want to use and enjoy using.
Thank you. Now, do we have any questions in the room, either to all of our panelists, or please specify if you've got a question for one panelist in particular. I think we'll do without the mic, but for those online, I will repeat the question so you are aware of what the question is. You, sir, were the first.
Afternoon there. My name's Brent Murgatroyd and I work in CMP within Marine Services. So I suppose it's not really a question, it's almost more of a plea and kind of more setting sort of a position, because I think I've heard a bit of a tale of 2 sort of perceptions of social mobility up front. So I think the key thing for me is I want an opportunity to be able to earn that seat at the table. I don't want to be given it. And I think that's the thing, is at the end of the day, life is hard, life can be difficult. We need the opportunities to be able to go through that. I don't want to get given something. So I think that's the key thing. And well, I think it's great, this opportunity. I want to thank you for what you're doing. And I think at the end of the day, this will really help those people, because I mentor at the YMCA, 16-year-olds that are literally on the precipice in terms of falling off outside of the our society. So I think what you're saying about sort of engaging the community at that level is really going to help. So bottom line is, summing up, free, want to earn it, and thank you for your support on this.
Thank you. So for those online, the question was around earning your role within the rail industry, not being given a position, but actually having the ability to earn your way into leadership positions. Anything from the panel on that one? Anything you'd like to respond?
Yeah, I think the one thing I've seen Network ever since Network Rail was created is it's rebuilding the framework that allows people to thrive in an organisation. Training and education being one particular stuff. The work they're now doing with colleges and whatnot allows people to school up. I left with literally four CSEs, as I said. I've got loads of qualifications now, and I didn't get them other than what I got through the systems British Rail had in those days. I had to work my way up the ladder. I was never given a job. I had rights in terms of getting that. They called it a PT&R, promotion, transfer, redundancy arrangements, but it gave me rights. But equally, I still had to work those things. So creating those mechanisms where people can strive, but also have the ladder to be able to climb up to get to them is really important. The other thing that I would hope will stop happening, I doubt if it will, but it's just I support the 5-year control periods that Network Rail have got in funding. I want a bit more stability around management, how the industry is organised and managed, so that we don't have a situation from one year to another. People don't know whether there's going to be a job, and there's insecurity that creates from that. It's a lot better than what it used to. The mechanisms we got to know a lot better than what used to. Under British Rail, every 6 months you turn around and figure out whether or not it's going to happen. But 5-year control period should give you more stability to turn around and finance and dictate how you're going to do workload and how people are going to operate. That should work its way through to people on the ground so they don't feel insecure. Because that's the other side about social mobility. You ain't going to move anywhere. You ain't going to do things if you think you're going to end up in a cul-de-sac. So there's a lot of stuff we can do around that, I think. But getting stability in the industry and being aspirational, I think, is another thing for everybody, including passengers, for the staff, and for the company you work for.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think we've mentioned already about actually getting people enthused about doing these things, and I wholeheartedly agree that working for it is so much better than being given it anyway. And you know, we really do need to look at some of the young people, because I look at my department and I've had 4 retire this year, and it's like, blimey, you know, where are my young talent who is coming through that process? And as I say, from my experience in terms of just that ability to be enthused about something at that younger age, that actually then gives you that desire to want to work, and then with the structure, I think that will really sort of like show us a measure of success.
I think the only other thing I'd add, and I have to keep reminding myself, is actually generationally what young people want changes. So, you know, often you hear like, well, in my day, or, you know, and actually it's that point about, you know, that ability to kind of earn the opportunity, earn your place, but it's also like plugging into the world is really different now. And actually understanding like what's really important to young people, what drives and what challenges they face, more than probably we ever did in different ways. So I think there's also that bit to kind of be a bit humble about understanding that there's that combination with the kind of social mobility piece as well, I think.
Yeah.
Any more questions? A few more hands have gone up. The lady here. Yeah.
My name's Carolyn Jay. I work with Mott MacDonald. I'm a social value lead, a new starter in the covering their transportation unit. I've come out of a job in employment skills in local authorities a while ago. My most recent job was in highways. And in highways, in the construction industry in general, the language used around EDI is fairness, inclusion and respect. Is that language that's familiar to Rail? They chose the FIR agenda because EDI was controversial to lots of people who work in the highways construction industry. So is FIR a familiar language? And if so, what are the synergies between what's happening in construction and what might happen in railways?
Thank you. So for those online, it's a question around language and whether the language that we're using in industry is similar to other sectors like construction. Who would like to take that one?
Can I just say, I went out to steering group last week. There's 2 things that I asked, and is it Elena? Is it? Yeah.
Yachty. It was your.
No. Yeah. You said something about social value, which I don't know what social value means, and I don't know what social mobility means. I haven't got a clue. Now, I don't think I'm a thick person, but and I know I retired in 21. But if I went into my old depot at Watford and start talking about social mobility and social value, I'd have some fun and games, to be honest with you. So having a definition is really important. And giving people, I mean, I liked the way Andrew explained it earlier on. I liked it the first time he said it, and the second time, and now the third time. And it is around an agenda for everybody. No one's left behind. That's the phrase you said to me first time. No one's left behind. So whatever terminology you give it, social mobility, EDI, DEI, whatever, I even could have it diet, I don't care. As long as it's something that people understand and can conceptualize it, That's what matters to me. And to be fair, we have a debate in rooms like this all the time, and that's not where the debate should be around this. It should be in the workplaces, and it should be at the homes of people who feel left behind, or whatever gender, class, or whatever they are. People feel left behind, and that's for me is allowing those people opportunities and the ability to thrive, getting into things, and then being able to climb up a ladder. Well, first I've given them a ladder. It's a ladder.
Yeah, I don't know FIR. EDI is what we speak about, and probably we do talk about it, but it's not something that is sort of really known by me. So no.
Do you think it's a useful concept? I mean, are those words more easily accessible? I hear what you've said, but are those words more easily accessible by a broader section of the public than a phrase like EDI?
I think, yeah.
The construction industry uses it.
Yes, I think it probably is. And I think, one of the things that Andrew said was we've scared quite a lot of people in the industry talking EDI that says, oh, well, that's not me because I'm a white, middle-aged, middle-class man. So I don't fit into any of this EDI. Well, of course you do. Because, everybody's got diversity of thought and things as well. So yes, that might be a better phrase.
Right, do we have more questions? Are you there?
Hi, I'm Karina Sam, so I'm the Apprenticeship and Graduate Development Manager. I wrote my question down so I don't mess my words. So we've just launched the first NR Academy. You mentioned about 16-year-olds, and it's for 16 to 19-year-olds in London. How much of a priority is it for the industry to expand on an initiative like this across like the regions across Network Rail and also outside into the wider industry?
Right, so that question for those online was about Network Rail's Academy, whether it's expanding beyond London. I guess that's one for you, Andrew.
Well, hopefully I addressed that in my sort of priorities for the next 3 to 5. So I think if we're serious about fairness, and I do like the FIR acronym, then we have to, because it really hits. If you look at the people who leave school at 16 without a very clear career pathway, it covers a huge range of people who are going to find it very difficult to get on a decent employment ladder subsequently. And we know that people learn differently. And I'm going to say something that may be a bit controversial. My observation is that people are maturing more slowly as well. An instant conversation with my 31-year-old son last week when we were on holiday together, and he volunteered that and explained why, from his perspective, he thought that was true. So I think we're going to find more and more if we say no, you have to. We only offer access at 18. We'll be losing out on talent.
Thank you. We're quickly running out of time, so I just want to end on a question to all panelists, if we can start with you, Andrew, which is what one thing people attending here today should do when they leave here?
Well, I hate those sort of questions because, dare I say, it sort of misses the mark. You need to know that for yourself, because you need to be true to yourselves and think about in your context how you can contribute to fairness in the workplace. What is it that you can do that applies to lack of fairness, whoever you encounter? I think that's where I would encourage you, just to be alert to that. It may be simply because you don't fit in, because you're the only person of color in a white mess room, or the other way around, or you may be the only woman, or I suppose if you're in HR, the only man, the point is, in fairness, if we think about what it's like to be in a marginal position, and use that to influence the decisions we take.
The correct answer there was join Beyond Barriers. So Very close.
You need to. I am too thick to pick up on these nuances. You see, you just need to say, yeah.
Claire.
Join Beyond Barriers. I mean, a similar theme. Yeah, you see, that's the thing. Definitely choose where you sit. It's a similar theme. It's about that. I think always just that challenging and thinking about perception. So, like for example, even just one bit about like recruitment. So think about that person that might be coming for that interview, and sometimes organisations have a way or a thought about how that recruitment should go, how that interview should be, what kind of experience. And I do think sometimes that misses massively, particularly for younger people, that they won't have ticked all the boxes. They won't have done this certain thing, but it's actually the potential and the capability is what we need. So there's a bit that goes in your organisations. And I know sometimes it's hard because there is very clear recruitment processes and we have to fill in certain boxes about what we do. But I think sometimes it's like, are you really giving that person opportunity to go, what could be their potential, rather than just going, well, I only hire the people that either look like me, sound like me, or that they've ticked all those boxes. Because if I think about some of the early opportunities I had in my first jobs, I hadn't met any of that criteria, but someone took a chance on me. And that's the point, isn't it? That we can't be relying always on chance, but it has to be about that perception, doesn't it? About this person has potential. So I think it's a bit about challenge yourself on that, either in recruitment or even just in sometimes meetings. If someone's making a point and they might not be saying it quite in the way that you used to, it's still really worth listening to. Do not switch off, because I think people do sometimes, don't they? Because they're kind of like, well, you don't sound like that other person. So it's just challenge your perceptions, I think is so important.
Accent does. Yeah. That mean you have the accent.
Just because you just don't sound like other people. Yeah.
I think my takeaway on these things is always to be kind. I think one of the things that we speak about, FIR, EDI, social mobility, all these bits and pieces, these are people. And it doesn't really matter who they are, what colour they are, how short they are, or whatever. You know, I think a lot of things we can actually move forward better if we actually are kind, and we sort of think about people as people rather than a label or anything like that one. So I would say that that's always a good one for me to start off with. And I take on board the recruitment, and we've just appointed somebody to a role because we appointed it internally. We did a succession plan, and rather than going externally and looking for somebody that had all of the characteristics that we could tick the box, we've taken a chance on one of our internals who we're going to develop and move through, because I think that sometimes that's really important. The people that you have in your organisation probably just need to be allowed to fly a bit. They may not have all of the attributes yet, but sometimes we need to give these people a chance, because then they can. And, I think that will help to reduce some of the barriers to a variety of things. So that's what I would take from here.
For me, it's just quite an easy answer question, actually. It's not managerial, by the way. For it to work, social media to work, it has to become a mass movement. And for me, that means joining a union. And if you're not in a union, join a union and get active in it. And then what you get is a pincer movement. This is where I'm going to be out of kilter now. Because ultimately, you can then create real change by bottom-up dynamics. And that's the only way. It's, one, getting it accepted, but having a movement that allows it to become a BAU, business as usual. So join a union.
Thank you. And Beyond Barriers at the same time. Thank you.
Please.
It's absolutely free. Can you imagine that? So absolute bargain. So please, if anyone here is not a member of Beyond Barriers, then please do join. So we're going to wrap it up there, and I will pass. I've got a little bit more time, apparently. Yeah, if you can.
I don't want people online to be left out.
Can I just see, let's put a small thing. You don't really believe that the unions have got this right, though, do you? I mean, because we all know that in some places, just like management, just like workforce, the unions can be the biggest resistance to some of this change. In some places, they're not. It's not an unadulterated good, is it?
We can have a good debate about this.
I said we had I said we had some time left. Now we won't have any left.
Look, what they don't, and some of the behaviours there. Then there's no entity that's on a pedestal, is there? Let's be honest.
Now I can talk about Network Rail in its time with some behaviours. So, but there's no one perfect in this world. But the reason I talked about being a mass movement and joining a union is making sure all parties in the industry are on board the agenda, and change happens by turning up. Having a conversation, whether in the branch meeting for a trade union or in the workplace, and then having the ability for resistance to be countered by actually bringing people along with you. And that was the point of the question.
Active rather than just being a member.
Yes, right. Yeah.
That's the distinction.
They're turning up and making your point of view heard.
Using your own. That's right. So go next.
And there's a question very linked to that from online. So what support could be available for action-orientated social mobility initiatives that are being developed and implemented out in the regions? Is there funding?
Andrew.
Look, it'll depend on whether or not it's a business case and if it's a good idea. Not everything people want to do will be fundable, and not everything will be a good idea. But a bit like we're doing with the academy, a bit like some of the other training, we are committed to trying some of these things out and seeing if they work. There's plenty. We can afford to try things. One of the benefits of Network Rail in terms of scale, and it's why I think Claire's right about GBR, is we can experiment a bit more. But then, of course, you can't stay at the experimental phase. We've then got to roll out. And some of those things will be about then saying, no, we're going to prioritise doing this instead of something else. But let's test what works first.
A brilliant answer, thank you. So social mobility is embedded in the new social value strategy. How can the leadership team encourage contractors to collaborate more effectively and deliver against local priorities and needs?
So since 2000, since Network Rail was first created, Network Rail on average in 2023 prices are spent £3 billion a year with the contractor base. 1 billion, by the way, a year with on-track renewals alone. He who pays the piper calls the tune.
Okay, thank you for that. And then finally, is there diverse representation in leadership in terms of social mobility and other protected characteristics? Or is there work to be done to establish this at a leadership level? And Linda, you've got the mic. Did you want to go next?
Well, there you go. I mean, it sort of depends where you look. It depends where you go. There is definitely more diversity in senior leadership now than I think we've had for quite some time. Could we do more? I'm pretty sure we could, but I think we are moving in the right direction. And the more that we keep working on this, the better it will become. So yes, I think it's definitely moving in the right direction.
Fabulous. That was all the questions online, right? I jumped straight in here and I forgot to say who I was. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Apeksha. I'm one of the Industry Inclusion and Belonging leads, and I also co-chair Rail Unites for Inclusion. There's our banner next to Beyond Barriers, and we've been collaborating really closely with Beyond Barriers. We set up the first working group, the Social Mobility Working Group. So myself, my colleague Otis, who you heard from at the beginning. I was asked whether I wanted to open or close the event, and I chose to close the event because this is the best bit where I get to thank everyone, and I love to do that. So firstly, thank you, David, for chairing this amazing panel session. Thank you to all our fabulous panelists. You are all such inspirations, and we really appreciate everything that you're doing for the industry, and we really mean that. Thank you to the Beyond Barriers team. You are all so amazing, and I love working with you all. And Pfizer, where is Pfizer? There's Pfizer. Pfizer, you are fantastic. Thank you for keeping us on track.
thank you for sorting us all out all the time and saying, come on, we've got to get this done. We love you for that. So thank you for everything you do. Thank you to you all for coming, for taking the time out, for coming here today, and to those online. Sorry for all the tech issues. Thank you for bearing with us. We got there in the end, but really appreciate you taking the time out today as well to listen to us. And that's, I think, all I wanted to say, except a special thank you to Sir Andrew for sponsoring us, for sponsoring all the work we do on social mobility. No, but thank you. We really appreciate it. And, you know, the Social Mobility Working Group, the steering group, Beyond Barriers, but not only that, the work we're doing on EDI, the work we're doing on well-being across the industry. Thank you for showing all that support. Without you, some of the stuff we're trying to do around improving our EDI maturity and stuff like that wouldn't have happened. So really appreciate everything you've done. Great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Just a final thing, we are going to put a QR code on the screen for feedback. So please, please, please take some time, fill it out. But you've now got some time to network with each other, or if you have to rush off and get home to your loved ones, have a safe journey. But thank you for coming. Take care, everyone. Oh.
Probably whatever, we're not finished early.
I get barriers one in as well.
Don't worry, calls and mail. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just see a review and
Exactly.